Well, hello, everyone. Well, my name is Cecilia, and I would like to give a welcome to our panel session today, Mentoring, Mobilizing for Change and Advocacy. Before we begin, I'd like to go over a few housekeeping items. For those on Zoom, we request that you stay muted and post all questions into the chat box. At the end of the presentation, we will have time for Q&A. And well, the panelists that I wanted to introduce you, and I have the honor to give them the welcoming, are Tyrslai Williams Carter. That is okay. Okay, Tyrslai Williams Carter, Assistant Dean of Mentoring, Research and Education at Louisiana State University. Majaliwa Bass, Vice President of Product Marketing Incorporates Division at Thomson Reuters, and Beata Kilos, Research Scientist in the Chemical Science Group of the Core Research and Development Division at Dow Chemical Company. We will start by letting the panelists spend a minute or two introducing themselves by telling us about their current position, education, and career path. Thank you so much. Oh, and this is the microphone. That. Yeah, here, but I don't know if they are here. Yeah, are here. Perfect.
So, thank you so much for the very kind introduction and invitation for being here. My name is Beata. I'm working in Dow Chemical Company for the last 13 years. And originally, I was born in Poland, in Europe. And I grew up in the communist country where a lot of resources were limited, but and I actually grew up in the military family. My dad was a general of Polish army. My mom was a businesswoman, but they always encouraged me to, to study hard and go into the science. Because even actually in the communist countries, the science was appreciated, maybe for the different reasons sometimes, but I'm saying this is true. I went through that experience. So then, I started my master degree in Europe at the time. We didn't have a bachelor degrees, and the system was very different than the US system. So I got a master degree in chemistry, and I decided to pursue PhD again in chemistry in the heterogeneous catalysis space. And I was lucky enough to get very prestigious Marie Curie fellowship, which allowed me to move to Lyon, France, where I did my PhD in the space of oxidation catalysis. And then I returned to Poland and I get the faculty position, but in chemistry department. But I was thinking I really would like to incorporate more chemical engineering in my work as a faculty. And I applied for the postdoctoral position to the UC Berkeley and Lawrence Berkeley National Lab, and I got the dual appointment with two amazing professors, Professor Iglesia and Professor Bell. I learned a lot from them, and my faculty position was waiting for me in Poland, but somehow I decided to switch my mind and go to industry. And I don't regret that decision. I've been at Dow for last 13 years, but academic interaction and collaboration with the universities are in my DNA. So I got opportunities at Dow, for example, to lead a big project, $2.5 million project for 5 years, where I have 5 PhD students, 3 faculties. So I kept that connection, and I'm pretty active externally in either in the leadership settings in my discipline, or also driving the diversity and inclusion initiatives inside of my company or also outside of my company. And recently I've been appointed, I got my second job. I became a editor of ACS Catalysis, which is actually very unusual for industrial researcher to do this kind of job. So, I'm also married to Dan. We deal with the dual career, which is sometimes very challenging. Actually, yeah, my husband has also PhDs, and we always try to navigate through those choices, which is not easy. Sometimes we are in the in two locations. Actually, he works for Caterpillar, so he's located in Chicago. I'm living in Midland, Michigan, so we're continuously on the road, on the plane. And COVID was actually really nice because we were in the one house. We have a dog, which is Pomeranian, and it's pretty cool to have him around. And one of the kind of maybe interesting things about me, in 2020, I lost my house because there was a huge flood in Michigan, in Midland. 3 dams actually collapsed, so US infrastructure is falling apart, and we had like 6 feet of the water in the main house. Actually, over 10,000 people were evacuated in Midland, Michigan, including the Dow Chemical Company. So we lost pretty much everything, and we are starting from scratch. So resilience is, part of the game, I guess. So I think with that, I will pass to my next panelist.
Hi, my name is Majaliwa Bass. I'm Vice President of Product Marketing at Thomson Reuters, which is a software company for legal and accounting firms. My path is a very interesting and storied one, and someday maybe over beer, I'll take you through all of the details, but at the highest level, I would tell you that I started out in mechanical engineering. So that's what I got my degree in. And actually went to work for a nuclear plant and found myself surrounded by a bunch of white men who told me every day I didn't deserve to be there. So I quit and ended up pursuing a career in software development, being an IT consultant. And I learned a ton over the years, and then found myself in conversations that I didn't understand, things like EBITDA. I do now, but at the time I did not. And I said, well, I always wanted to get a master's degree. Do I get it in business? Do I get it in engineering? I actually spoke to my engineering professors, and they're like, depending on what you're trying to do, it's probably a business degree. So got my MBA, pursued a path in marketing, and then worked my way back into software. And like I said, I can take you through that storied past for me. So currently, like I said, I'm Vice President of Product Marketing, which is responsible for determining what type of software we create, how we use that software to solve customer problems. I work with corporations, so major Fortune 1000, Fortune 500 corporations. It's really exciting to see how the decisions that we make, even in something as simple as software, actually have an impact around the world. So I love what I do. Outside of that, I am a mother to 4 crazy, nutty little children, ranging from 12 to 5. I have 2 boys and 2 girls, and my husband is currently in pursuit of his PhD. So that's been fun and interesting to figure out how we balance all of that. And I think that's it.
All right, hello everyone. I'm Tyrslai Carter. I am, as they say, the Assistant Dean. This is new as of January, of Mentoring, Research, and Education at LSU. My background is very interesting. I'm a first generation student, and all of that, what that means. My grandfather could not read or write. And so my degrees mean so much to my family and I know, right? Changing the narrative. It's my goal in life. And so I'll start at the very beginning. I got my undergraduate degree from Southern University, which is an HBCU in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. But I started off at LSU. And I started off there on a full ride. I was salutatorian in high school, and I got to that big campus and I lost it. I lost every scholarship I had. I failed out miserably. And so I went to Southern University, right? Someone said, maybe try there. There'll be something a little bit better for you, a little bit different. And that's where I got my first dose of mentorship. Someone found me, dusted me off. This is what you need to do to be successful, right? And so I made a 4.0 GPA until I left Southern University because of that support system. And so I'm so excited about this conversation today because it is interwoven in everything me. And I was in the mindset of I'm going to get my pre-med degree. And she's like, no, dear, that's not what you're gonna do. Your mindset is far beyond that. I said, okay. I'll switch from biology to chemistry pre-med. And we get to the end and she said, you should consider a PhD. Well, my family never talked about that as a doctor. You only knew an MD. And so after much consideration and debate, I lost. And I went to get my PhD at LSU. And so it was kind of interesting being back on the campus where I fell flat on my face. But this time I was armed with something different. I had some ignition from my advisor. I had a mindset that was, you won't challenge me this time, I'll challenge you. And I found my tribe, I found my unit, and I pursued my degree in organic chemistry. But what I didn't realize was that that little inclination of mentorship changed who I was. And so while I did well at the science, I needed to do people work. I needed to be around people. I needed to pour myself into others. And so after I got my PhD, I pursued a career that did not exist. So I broke down a wall and made my job. I became the director of strategic initiatives. And so it sounds very interesting, right? Like strategic planning, well, that wasn't the job at all. We were creating pathways for students who were interested in STEM and making sure that they got to the university and they were very acclimated and they felt like they can do what they wanted to do. So it was really passion-driven work that I was doing. Started off as assistant director, was promoted in 2 years to director. And my boss retired last year in December. Before he retired, he made some really great connections for us on campus and he made sure that we were gonna be able to continue to work. And so then I was promoted to assistant dean now. And so it's exciting.
Well, thank you so much for introducing yourself. Now there is a moment for questions. And well, to break the ice, I'm gonna start with the first question that is, what are the things you wish the current academia or industry did for positive advocacy? And I don't know who want to start to answer. You can choose.
I'll start first and then I'd actually love to hear. I would say for me, one of the interesting challenges is being in corporate America. A lot of what we fight for in terms of like equality and equity, et cetera, is a fight that's largely fought by the minority to make it happen. Yep. And so that's really hard. And quite honestly, I gave up a long time ago on being the person that was going to educate people. Like it's way too much. I will advocate, I will fight, but I cannot educate. And so one of the things that I do desire for academia, which is it's their job to educate, right? So it's one thing for you to tell me how to be a stronger, better person. What are you going to teach these other people that I'm going to have to go into the workforce next to on how to do that thing? And this thing where you make people watch a video online and answer a 5-question quiz at the end is it's not cutting it. It's just not cutting it. So that's my thing.
I think for me in academia, I would like to stop the assumptions, right? You come here, you should know you're at this level, you should have it all together. You should know how to interact with people. You've done it for this long. And so I think being able to understand that there's a human nature to what we do. And as scientists, it's important to install that in you because you're going to be someone's professor. It's going to be someone's boss. It's going to be something to someone, and that part matters. And it's not okay to be able to just go and hide in your lab and do your research. So I think that would be the most important thing that I hope that academia could do. And then industry, I think there's a work-life balance. We heard earlier, there's not a such thing, right? But there's a thought process to that I think industry has that academia has not realized yet. And so I would love to be able to open the door and really figure out how we can mesh that idea across the board.
I think it's probably
Yeah.
covered it very well. So.
If you have some questions, just interact. That is the idea.
I have a question as someone who's currently trying to set up a mentoring program for their department. If you guys have any advice of, there's lots of different ways that people can be paired. And if there's any advice to like what connections have been really impactful for you.
So I can talk about, how I set up mentoring program actually in our central research organization, because when I joined actually DAO, I was speaking that this is a big missing opportunities that, and I was the only one female actual researcher in my group, and I was lacking of the mentors. And So the way, I do this, I make the case. I start convincing my leaders that, the mentoring program is really good for the corporation because, you can really exercise a lot of leadership opportunities for people. You can equip them to be successful, develop certain skills, also try to pass the technical knowledge through those mentoring relationship. And a lot of successful companies were actually having, mentoring programship. And so, I went to my VP and I told him this is the need, and I proposed to him how we will do this. So I told him that there's a lot of programs, like for high potential programs, where they are getting assigned mentors, but there is I would say called middle class people who are very talented, and they are not having those opportunities to getting those mentors. So, and I think, there's tremendous talent there. So why don't we assign mentors to those folks to help them develop their careers and be successful at that? And he said, okay, how we're gonna do this? And I told him, like, I will work with the manager of each organization and we will assign the mentors, because I was assuming that who, if not manager, should know their people the best. So that's how we started. And we make also, a lot of materials, how to build those mentoring relationship. And we ask people to meet on the regular basis on the monthly basis to help to make those connections. We also told them, if you are not feeling that you are connected with that assigned mentors, it's okay to walk away, and we will find you another person. Don't be uncomfortable, and if you really don't click with that particular person. And it was a lot of work on a lot of people, especially for the high level people who mentor a lot of folks, but they were getting recognized also on that, and we educate the mentors that they start recognizing that they're also benefiting, and seeing growth in those people who they are mentored. That was also very rewarding. So I was able to do this 5 years ago. That program is still ongoing, but it started from the kind of grassroots effort, but with the leadership support, and it was pretty successful. So we still continue, and now every employee has at least 2 mentors, like one in organization they are in, and one is outside. So and a lot of especially introverted people are appreciating that kind of opportunity, because they're not go-getter people to find those folks to help them with their career development.
I'll share that.
Okay. Can you guys hear me without the mic?
This is
Okay, I was gonna say, I grew up in a Southern church. Never had to do
Oh, it's for the Zoom, the mic.
Oh, is it for the Zoom?
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm sorry.
All right, no, that's not a problem. I just, okay. So
Yeah, it's fine then.
is it fine right there? Okay, perfect. What I would say is, and take this in the right way.
Yeah.
Be careful with mentoring programs. And so there's 3 core questions that I think are important to ask, which is, what problem are you trying to solve? What does success look like? And who are the people that will help you achieve that success? And the reason I say that is because I've been at corporations and they'll do this mentoring thing, and sometimes it's organic and sometimes it's inorganic and whatever. And then they go, oh, the program was successful. What exactly made it a success? What were we trying to do? Because if it were things like, oh, well, the reason we're doing this is we're trying to advance the number of women in leadership positions that are director and above. That's awesome. How many actually advanced? Because you can talk to people all day. Who are the people that can help make those advancements happen? Because we literally had this just play out at Thomson Reuters this past year, where they put a whole program in place. They even brought in McKinsey. They built like this massive mentorship program. It's 6 months long. There's subgroups and small groups, and people are assigned sponsors and mentors and in the C-suite and the whole 9. And then they reported out there, and they set goals for it too. They even set goals, this many women and this many Black people and da, 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 da. And then they put out a report at the end of the year in December. We literally made 0 progress. Take that back. Negative progress. We actually lost people in the pipeline to leadership positions. And so they're like, what did we do wrong? Again, what problem are you trying to solve? What does success look like? And who are the people that can help you get there? Because you sat there and you coached and you mentored all these people. The intent was supposed to be that they became in leadership positions, but that never actually happened. Well, who can make them get in leadership positions? I can talk to you all day and you can coach me on how to do a presentation or whatever. What I need you doing is pulling and pushing for me to be in certain positions. And that part wasn't happening.
But that's more sponsorship and advocacy, not mentoring, right?
It ties
It's-
in, well,
Well, but this is why I say, what problem are you trying to solve,
Yeah.
right? Now, if you just want to set up something that just helps give people an emotional support system for the challenges that they're going through, that's fine. I'm not saying one doesn't need to be. The problem is they established a mentorship program and said that the goals for people to get promoted, and then that didn't happen. And that's why I said, what problem are you trying to solve? What does success look like? And who are the people that will help you get there? Because it fundamentally dictates how that program shakes out. And so many people just assume that because you assigned a mentor, that somehow magically all these other diversity and inclusion problems we have go away. And like, that's not a thing. So I would just say, just be really clear about what that is, and provided you put that in place, you'll be successful, whatever it is. And talk to the people that want mentorship and understand very clearly from them, what is that thing that they're hoping to get out of it? And then you can take it from there. I've just seen a lot of programs get spun up, and then I'm like, I don't know, it's a lot of work for us to not really do anything.
What you say, and our program, mentoring program, was not having the goals to promote certain, the fraction of the group to the next level. It was to provide development opportunities, and then through some of those mentoring relationships, some of them actually naturally became more advocacy and sponsorship relations. But that's a very separate program which we created, which had some goals like that sponsor within 2 years is really required to push you to the or provide opportunities so you can advance to the next
I
level.
love that, yeah.
so I'll only add, I have a question back to you. Is it for students? Is it for professionals? What type of mentorship program?
It's for grad students that are like starting new at the department.
Awesome. So we at LSU, I'm actually the PI of a $2.5 million grant with NSF for mentorship. And so we're promoting academic careers for underrepresented students and making sure that throughout the whole pathway that they're supported, undergrad, grad, postdoc, and early career faculty. And that's why I ask you, because it's important to understand who you're actually supporting. And we believe in holistic mentorship. And so they have mentors at every level. They're being mentored by a faculty, they have a peer mentor, then they also have a mentor that is underneath them that they're supporting. Because mentorship is reciprocal, right? And so if you can pour into someone, you're also being poured into. We don't just allow them to have their relationships and go on about their business. We actually have workshops to develop them. We train the mentors, we train the mentees, how to receive feedback, how to give feedback. Like, it's just a whole big ordeal in really supporting one another. We also provide opportunity for the students to match themselves. We don't put them together. We actually are using an app. So there's a bit of science that's behind that, and they're matched through questionnaires, right? They're asked several questions, and then there's a percentage that comes out. It tells them how likely they are with the different faculty or peer mentees. And so they go on and they match themselves. So we're not putting them. The relationship doesn't work, they can report back, and then we give them more. So it's very interesting to watch how it works out. I think they feel more agency because they're in charge of how their relationship starts. And then they have different assignments and goals they must meet. They come together. We have different cafes so they can talk about their experiences. The mentors have cafes. So there are a lot of different tips and tricks you can add into it to make it feel sound and whole, and especially at the graduate level.
Yeah, so kind of to add to that, because I will mention that for the new employees, which is kind of new grad students coming to the university and finding themselves in their new place. For the new employee, we are having the different programs, like we have integration coach, which is helping first 6 months to really integrate the employee to their work culture and all of the things related to their projects. And then we have also safety mentors who are helping them to at the initial stage, but actually for the first 2 years in the labs, to make sure that we are doing all of the chemistry work in the same manner because we don't want to have any accidents. So I think, you can use some of those in, as a part of the graduate, mentoring program. So just kind of integration coach to the program, and then some sort of further mentoring depending on the department. And
Oh, sorry.
Oh, yeah. So, just like number wise, right? Like there's not a lot of, like, for example, in academia, there's not a lot of underrepresented groups, right? That like students could look up to. And I'm just kind of curious, like with your training programs, like in terms of like developing the mentor to be aware of like certain cultural, like, just to better understand, like, is that something that's in place? Or like, what are some of the challenges that you have? Because at the end of the day, like, you need numbers, right? You need like people who care, but can also like mentor in a way that isn't harming to like the student and making like assumptions about the background.
And I'll say this: when we started off with LSPEC models, we said that we want to put mentors and mentees together that look like one another. We're so excited we're going to do this. It's going to be awesome. We signed up the students, we signed up the mentors. The mentors did not look like the mentees because they're not out there, right? It's not many that are out there. They're in the pipeline still. And so it was important for us to put some cultural competency trainings in place and allow safe spaces for those who want to be there and support and advocate and mentor and coach to be trained to be able to support students, right? And so we have it's almost like an enactment of different situations and conversations that have come up over the time based on FAQs to support students. And so you feel armed with the knowledge, you have the resources needed, and if it is too much for you, there are other people in place like myself and other PIs who can then support you and coach you through that situation.
How do you keep people from falling through the cracks? Like the people who are harder to engage and won't speak up and need help. How do you reach out and inspire them to get in?
I'm going to give a very unorthodox opinion on that one, which is I don't. There are so many people out there who want to be engaged. They may not know how to do it, but they want to. And those people, I proactively engage them. In my experience, the ones that don't speak up, that just say it, but then they don't actually put in literally any level of work. And I do mean any level of work. Because I always make it a point to put myself out there that I am available to coach, mentor, and I make the time to do it. For those people, then I say, we don't want it. And what I can't do is drag you into it. That's not a thing. So when you want it, there are people that are there for you, but if you don't, I'll be honest, over the years I've learned it actually starts to breed a bit of resentment. Yeah.
So I think in academia, that's another place because it's a lot of hard work, and we say that. And so it's hard to watch students slip through the crack, especially when you know something is wrong, you can't quite put your finger on it. I'll tell you, for instance, I just had a student come back to me. I was over a bridge to doctorate program, so I'm integrating students from HBCUs or MSIs into a PWI, right, essentially. And so he was a wonderful student, but he just never came for a mentoring session. We never saw him. His PI then said, he's not showing up to the lab, something's wrong, right? And so that's a student, I cannot engage with you unless you come into me, but I knew something was wrong. And so I would send him messages every so often. I would send notes through other students. I would just let them know, I'm here. You don't have to rush, I'm here. And so we recently had a conversation. It's been about 2 years since the program has ended, and he shared that was enough for him. He was dealing with a lot of family things, and so he had some mental issues he was working through. He's now on medication. He's feeling better about himself. But to know someone was there was enough for him. So I didn't overwhelm him, but I just sent subtle notes of, you can come whenever you want. And that means the world to some people. But there are others that you cannot reach, right? There are just some students who are I'm headstrong about what I want to do. This is how I'm going to do it, and that's that. And there's sometimes something you can't handle, right?
When you want to advocate for a particular change, you realize that you want some power to be able to do it, but also sometimes you are not passionate about to be in that power. So how do you advocate for a change by not being in a very powerful position?
Say more.
So for example, as a graduate student, say you want to be mentored in a different way. But it's like something that you are asking for as a graduate student to the department. There is a very good chance that you're not being heard because you are just a graduate student. So how do you like make it like, how do you make people hear it?
Bring more graduate students and, write a letter to the, the faculties, ask your professor also how our voice can be heard, right? So, I mean, there's probably not one good way of doing. You need to become creative and try to speak up, right? And push the boundaries and drive the change. I know it's not easy, but
You need an advocate.
yeah.
You need someone who's gonna advocate on your behalf, because I understand that level of seniority that you feel that the professors have, the chairs and all of, whoever's running your department, but you have to find an advocate somewhere to support you. They may not be in your department either. That's the other point.
So in my experience is, garnering people together to get them to advocate is also a decent bit of work.
Yes.
But what I would say is, like, in my experience, a lot of times when people have challenges, what they'll do is they'll kind of go to a person in leadership and they'll say, we've got this problem to solve, here's what the problem is. If they could do a better job of mentorship, they'd be doing it. So by you telling them they have a problem, they're like, and then they're just looking at right. They're just gonna look at you because they have no idea what to do about it. And they probably already knew it all along. They just had no idea what to do about it. So what I have found is a more effective approach is to say, here's the problem. Do you agree? Here's the data. Do you agree you have a problem? Great. Here's what I've done. And what I need you to do is to do X, Y, Z. You'd be amazed at how much people in leadership need someone to actually tell them what to do. And that is when I start making traction, because I'm like, the mentorship program isn't working. Here's why it's not working, but here's what I think we can do about it. I just need you to give me more money or whatever that is, assign somebody, whatever it is, but come to them with the solution as well. And they'll probably tweak it a little bit, and that's okay, I'm open to that. But at the end of the day, I need you to make progress. And what happens a lot of times is the problem is so big that they don't know how to make progress. And then they end up not doing anything at all. And then that becomes insanely frustrating for you. So try to think through what that solution could be. Even if it's not like a super great solution, like don't stress yourself out about that. And then what can also help is like going to some of the professors one-off and saying like, hey, I'm kind of experiencing this. Here's what I think could be the right solution. What do you think? And what you're actually doing is what she just mentioned, which is now you're creating advocates because you've communicated that problem and they've played a role in helping you come up with a solution. So then when you take it to the committee, right, this is now a solution that has already had the input of like half of y'all here, right? So it's all the more now they're bought into it, they agree the problem to solve, but not only that, but they know how to go about solving it. Yes.
I have two questions. One is how do you get funding for mentorship, diversity, equity, inclusion, for outreach for the minorities? How do you get funding for that?
I could give a corporate answer.
Yeah, do you want corporate, academic, or?
Both, I mean, both.
Okay. So corporate answer is to start, you don't. So here's what I always find is really interesting, which is people will come up with solutions that have not been vetted or proven. And then they say, I have this really great idea, but I need you to give me like $20,000. Now, no, I'm serious. Now put yourself on the other side of that and you're going, okay, like this isn't a low budget Shark Tank, but I'm just gonna hand you money because you have an idea. Like that's not a thing. And so what I always challenge people to do is like, see if there's a way that you can prove it out. If you show up and say, listen, we've been doing this mentorship program over here. This is the problem we were trying to solve. Here's some of the results that we are starting to see. This is a really good thing. We want to make it bigger. Can you give us the funding? That's the way that you ask for it. But like literally just showing up with like a sheet of paper and saying, I got an idea and asking people for money, like you will almost never get it. Even if they have all the money in the world, you just won't get it. So think about how you might vet out whatever that idea is. And then that way you kind of have like the data and the proof points to take in to then justify what the financial ask is.
in the academic realms, you can have what we call a proof of concept, right? To go in and say, this is how it works. But there are funding groups that will give you funding. NSF, DEI is humongous to them right now. It's one of their top 10 big ideas. So you need to make sure that you're incorporating that some way. There are different foundations that support DEI work. And so you can get smaller size grants to support that work as well. NIH is starting to bite very big on DEI. And so there are spaces where you can get money there. But I would also say you need to be grounded in, as we heard earlier, framework for sure, to make sure that it makes sense as to what you're proposing. And there's literature to support it, right? Because if they don't have that, they won't fund your idea. And then you want to make sure that you're going to hit the masses and making sure you know who the audience is. So that would be my suggestion for funding.
So I know that, okay, NSF funding, that's great, but that's usually only for US citizens and
Yes.
Permanent residents. And do you have any idea of funding that is also available to international students?
That's going to be an institutional piece. You need to get your institutions to buy in for that, because funding for international students is very rare, very slim. There are some foundations that will give you funding for that, but not many. So it's going to be your institution to say, hey, if I got this grant that supports you, that supports 10 students who are US native students, I need you to match that 10. That's another angle to support, because if you get in $100,000, $50,000 grant, they're going to support you for the rest of it. So go to your graduate departments and get that support.
The other thing I would encourage you to also think about is, I've talked to a couple of students here, they've heard of design thinking. Have you heard of design thinking? Okay, so quick overview for those that haven't. It's essentially how you think about the problem to solve and then kind of ideate around it to come up with your solution. But the key is you anchor in the problem to solve. A lot of times what happens is people anchor in the solution, and then it becomes it's a mentorship program and I need funding for mentorship.
Yeah.
And that is why I went back and said earlier, what is the problem to solve, right? And what does success look like? You may have already decided that mentorship is the best way to solve this problem. I don't know if it is or isn't, because I honestly don't know what problem you're trying to address, but challenge yourself to think, is there another way I could solve it? Because what that's also going to do for you is open up your mindset around what exactly do you need the funding for? So if you know that you can't get funding for an international program for mentorship, it still doesn't negate the fact that you still have a problem to solve. Might there be another way for you to solve it?
Bring people and brainstorm, right? And do the design thinking, you know,
That's right.
Try to define your problems, find the solution and develop the solution and,
To follow up, are you in grad suite? Because if that's not part of like the grad suite funding or like part of their initiatives, then like similarly to the other person over there, I'm starting like something in my department, like Women in Robotics, as an organization. And as an organization in a department, you can get funding from that department and from other sources, whether the students are like national or international. And then we start programs like with mentorship and with advocacy, like we're setting up a network where we have students advocate for other students who are connected to faculty, and the faculty can advocate for those students as well. Those kinds of things that we don't need funding for. But
I love what you just said, because going back to the topic of our session is using mentoring and advocacy as a tool, right? And not really the driving head of what you're trying to do. There's so much other things that you need to do for that student, but these are only tools you're putting in place to support that student, right? So think of that. I think it's great.
Can we hear more about the program that you mentioned earlier with NSF?
Oh, the LSPAC models, yes. LSPAC models is really cool. So if you have an interest in going into academia, we are a center that wants to support that transition. If you're an undergrad and you're interested in academia, we help you get PhD level, right? We find different programs, we support you with workshops and trainings and all the great stuff. We put you in front of different groups. We have a conference every summer in July. It is going to be in New Orleans this year. So if you guys are interested, I'll share more information. But yeah, it's very exciting work. They have a talk, it happened on Friday. It was on the feedback piece. And so we're gonna have another one where one of our own students who's a mentee in the program, he's gonna talk to undergraduate students and help them understand the skill sets they need to be successful in graduate school. It was founded by Dr. Isaiah Warner, who is like this visionary. You know him.
I grew up in Baton Rouge.
Oh, okay, yeah. My boss never retired in December. So yeah, he is such a visionary person, and he had this idea of supporting students and making sure that they feel whole as they transition. And so that is our goal. We also help early career faculty. So there are different trainings you need to understand the tenure process. We put on shows for that. We also have writing workshops for graduate students because that is a necessary skill that a lot of us don't have, that they assume you have, right? So yeah, it is very interesting.
I guess kind of going off of that, how does that program at LSU differ from like say LSAM or McNair and other universities?
Fun fact, so it is a Lewis Stokes funded center. And so we support students who are in the Lewis Stokes directory for sure. That is our main target because again, they're underrepresented and a lot of those students don't transition into graduate programs as they should. And so our goal was to be that center, that group that helps to pull them through. Yeah.
Kind of following up on that, as a mentor, it's been kind of a career, personal shock to me to realize some of the things I've taken for assumptions when I'm mentoring first generation college students, both high school and college. So where would you recommend Lewis Stokes? Where are some good resources that I can get as a mentor to help be a better mentor to first generation college students?
So yeah, I would say let's pack models. Have some things for you for sure. But there, I don't know if you're familiar with oh my God. I can't think of it, but let's connect offline for sure. And I can share all of the resources we have because there's tons of literature for supporting first year students and first gen students. So I can help you with that for sure.
Thank you. That'd be awesome.
What are some of the challenges you're experiencing?
Let's see. So with Big Brothers and Big Sisters, I'm mentoring a high school senior, and they're, one of the big challenges is opening up her eyes to the opportunities that she'll be able to experience in college, that she hasn't even had the chance to go visit the college campus that she's been accepted to. It's at one of the branch colleges in New Mexico. And I'm realizing her ability to dream about who she could be. She's looking at medical, doctor, nursing careers is limited, that she doesn't have role models that she's dreaming after. So, I'm trying to help her get excited about college and realize the challenges and the opportunities she'll have. And without having the conversations of people, older siblings, older cousins, I'm realizing that's the challenge, that it's just this blank slate of anticipation and fear for her.
Yeah.
So helping her visualize being on campus. And I recently mentored a first generation college student, who's doing fantastic, going to immunology graduate school, but just realizing some of the assumptions about professional interactions, that he was intimidated when I said, hey, email our colleague to set up a meeting. That was actually a big ask of him. So, I realized this, okay. Then I started sending those emails so that he just had the example of, this is how you set it up. And, you get a few experiences and people say, yes, that sounds fantastic. How about Thursday at 2 o'clock? That breaks down the intimidation factor. But some of the professional, asking someone with a PhD to do something for him was an intimidating ask.
There's tons of literature for that. But the first example you mentioned is cultural. Very much so. So, putting examples in front of him would be great, or her would be great, but you have to also consider the cultural piece of moving somewhere brand new without support in the family. That's
she was thrilled when I told her there's first generation college network support systems.
Yeah.
She's like, what's that? People like
exactly.
me? Yeah.
No one tells you that, right? And so kudos to you for doing that and being there for her.
Oh, yes, I will definitely catch up with you.
Okay.
Can I put a shameless plug out there? So I have a company where we advocate for marginalized people in STEM. And one of the things that we do is we offer a mentoring course for faculty who want to become better mentors to marginalized students. So I can definitely share that information with them.
Oh, thank you.
think one more thing I'd probably just say on this is, it's maybe a little controversial, but I've never been one to shy away from that. Is I would say there are cultural experiences and expectations that people underestimate significantly. So sometimes it's not necessarily like a first year thing or a second year thing or a third year thing. It is truly cultural. There are just very simple things like, I remember my first job and my boss asking me, how was my weekend? Growing up, that's not, my weekend was my weekend. That's what it was, right? And it wouldn't even occur to me to ask you how your weekend was. And what was very fascinating is because I didn't have that conversation, he felt like I was aloof. Like, you guys have spent what, 20, 30 minutes with me. Is there any part? That seems aloof. It's not, it's just, that's not a thing. Like, I used to have to literally like plan ahead. Okay, he's gonna ask me my weekend. What do I want to tell him? I'm not gonna tell him I went to the club. I was like, whew, but I mean, it was work for me. And it was a cultural difference. It's a fundamental cultural difference. And I can say that in the sense that I have gone and I've worked in, like we have an office in London and I've worked in that office, and I've gone to Canada and I've worked in that office, and I've gone to India and I've worked in that office, and the culture was completely different in each one of them. And so a lot of times it's not necessarily that it's a first time anything, as much as it is like, I don't move and operate in that way. And so when you're doing it, I'm not even entirely sure how to interpret it. But inevitably what happens whenever someone doesn't accept their culture, if you will, there's a level of offense that kind of also ends up erupting. So I would just say, think about that too, as you're thinking about the people that you're mentoring, especially particularly, like I definitely saw a lot of this in some of the offices I worked in. You would never email a person in leadership. Like, that's disrespectful, right? Like, you be careful of what you say and who you say it to, and so then you'll see people move into another culture where it's like, oh no, that's perfectly okay. Well, they haven't quite learned it yet. So it's not, again, that there's anything about them or their background or whatever, it's cultural differences. So just take some of that into account as well. And kind of like what Tyrslai was saying, some people, they spent their whole life with their family. And so this notion of like picking up and moving to another place where your auntie or your cousin isn't down the street, it's like literally a level of anxiety. Like, I'm okay being the first one to go to college, but oh my God, I've never lived not around a family member. What am I gonna do? How am I gonna know that I'm okay?
And the responsibilities, right? Because I've had students who've taken care of their whole family. So them being in school was the main resource for them, the family living because of their scholarships and everything else. And so going off is not a thing, because who's going to support
the family?
The family. It's real.
Okay. I don't want to interrupt you, but first of all, I want to thank you for just to answering these questions. And I want to thank you, all the audience, for that questions also. And that's the end of the session. I'm so sorry.